When you think of board games, you likely think of the classics Monopoly, Risk, Catan, Trouble. But there's a whole community of board game geeks who have their own classics: Stone Age, Ticket to Ride, Splendor, Duel. Have I mentioned before, I am a bit of a board game geek. At my house, we have a whole room dedicated to games with dozens of them stacked up on shelves, and some people typically use those shelves for books. Not in our house. My husband is so into this scene that we test new games that are in development, and we rate the components and see how well they play. That's why our producers here on Windsor Morning decided I had to meet our next guest. He's one of 15 teenagers who were part of a program we featured in our news earlier this week. The Small Business and Entrepreneurship Center of Invest Windsor Essex gave them training and mentorship. They also received up to $3,000 in grants to support their business ideas. The thing about Nate Prange's concept is that it's a board game. We invited him here so I could talk to him about the world of inventing a new game, and he's here. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how did you get into board games?
Well, my dad was really into them, and I've just been playing them for a long time. And I've just really enjoyed them. And eventually it was an easy jump from playing a lot of games to trying to make my own.
Was there a moment where you thought, I can do this, I can make a game?
Yeah, actually, I was about 7 years old when I started making my first game. It was really janky, nothing really worked out, but it was something. I got it on the table, we played it, it was kind of fun to play. And then after that, I've just been always playing more games and then making more, playing more, making more, and just kept working on games.
One thing I learned as I was getting into more and more board games is there's different categories. So the way you think of movies, there's horror, comedy, and mystery. In board game world, there's card deck builder, there's strategy, there's resource management. Those are the terms that we use. So what type of category are you attracted to?
My personal favorite are deck builder games. I really enjoy being able to build up a strong deck where you have a machine almost playing one thing which triggers another thing, which triggers another thing. But the game that I'm developing right now called Block 11, it is actually a exploration card drafting game.
So explain to people what that means. What does that title mean when it comes to the mechanics of how the game is played?
Yeah, so exploration means as you play the game, you'll discover more parts of the map. In the case of my game, the map is made of the cards that you actually collect to play. And then card drafting means that there's a bunch of cards and you can gather maybe just one or two on your turn. You got to be strategic about what ones you choose. And that really comes into play when there's a bunch of cards and you have to choose which ones you're grabbing and how you're going to grab them, what order, just to make it work on the map.
So let's talk about your game. It's called Block 11. And
Yes.
What is it about?
It is about being the leader of a gang in a prison. So
Fascinating.
yeah, so your goal in the game is to, well, obviously win the game, and you can do that one of three ways. You can escape the prison by digging out of it. You can bribe a guard with enough money, or you can grow your gang to a set size.
Now you're 15. I've heard previously from our producer, Peter Duck, that he doesn't think you've been involved in the law in a bad way. So what exactly would you know about prisons and gangs?
Well, not much from firsthand experience, but I do enjoy watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I do play some prison video games, so I don't know, there's a little bit there. I just thought it was a cool concept and that there was a lot of potential to make a game out of it.
So you get this idea for a game. You brought the components with you, and you and I were chatting a bit before we went to air, and what I thought was really great for people who play games will understand what I'm saying, but usually when I sit down after a long day, my husband hands me a deck builder game, which is part of what yours is. There's all this reading. And based on what I do all day, the last thing I want to do is sit down and read through all these cards and decide which one I'm going to play. There's not much writing on these cards. What's the reason behind that?
Well, I wanted to keep it open to entry-level players, like older strategic players could still enjoy it. And part of that is not making the cards too complicated. If there's a card where so much is going on, you really need to understand the core concepts of games just to play a simple card sometimes. Whereas if all your cards have just minimal writing and not too much going on, you can really open up the gaming world to new players, and it's easier to explain and easier to understand.
I'm wondering how you go from a concept of a game to developing this prototype to now the next step, turning it into something that is sellable.
Yeah. Well, for me, for the process with this game, I started off with just an idea and took a notepad and just started writing everything down. And then after a bit, after I felt like I had a good baseline to actually start, I started drawing some hand-drawn cards on just graph paper and just to get something onto paper. And then I got about 50 hand-drawn cards done, I actually put it down for a little bit just because it's hard making a game. And then a little bit later, I picked it up, started working on it, then put it down again. I did that one or two more times. And then there was one time where I started work on it and I actually got way more progress and I got even more and more cards out and more of the game really thought out in my head. And then in my grade 10 business class, someone came to talk about the summer company program, and I was like, that is something that I could do. That is something I have an idea for a business. I could make my board game. I could get money to do it because it's not cheap making a board game. And I leapt on that idea and I just went with it. So
How will you take these cards and make them into mass production?
Well, you got to find a printing company to start that's within your budget, which is already a really hard part. Printing is so expensive if you don't own your own factory. And then once you have that, you actually gotta get the art done for it. And that's also not very cheap. And those are the main two components of getting it into production. But even after you've done that, you gotta find ways to sell it. For me, I'm gonna try and go on to Kickstarter with my game and be able to just show off the game there, get pledges for it, and then I want to see if I can get the game into local game stores, talk to some people I know, and just see what happens with that.
How long do you think all of it will take for you to get to the point where you can put it on Kickstarter and get people to back it?
It's difficult to say for sure. There's a lot of waiting for like art to be done, waiting to get enough playtesting in, because that you got to pull people in to do playtesting. But my goal, I don't know if I'll be able to get it, but my goal is to be able to have it on Kickstarter by the new year.
What are your favorite games now besides this one?
My current favorite games are, I do really enjoy Clank in Space, which is a deck builder. I enjoy Ashes, Rise of the Phoenix Born. That's a really good one. Those are my two big ones, my two go-tos right now.
And before I let you go, how is school going for you so far?
About as good as school can go.
Do you like school?
Not particularly, but I'm okay at it. But liking it is a different thing.
You'd rather be playing board games?
100%.
100%. I totally appreciate it. You'd rather be here with us. I love this.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Nate.